My life was turned upside down last month when I was informed of my husband's death in a work-related accident. This would naturally be difficult enough to handle, but shortly before the funeral, a young man appeared at my house claiming to be my late husband's son. My husband had never mentioned a word about him to me. He said he had not known about me or either of my daughters, aged 12 and 8, until he was notified of my husband's death and found the obituary in the online version of our local paper. The young man was 18 years old and must have been born before I met my husband. He also stated his own mother died years ago and was never, to his recollection, in a relationship with my husband. So the boy's existence does not prove infidelity on my husband's part. However, I still feel equally betrayed. My husband never mentioned him to me. This boy lives in the UK where my husband sometimes worked. I live in the US. He traveled frequently in his line of work, and I can't help but wonder how many other secret children he had. How many times did my husband visit this boy without telling me? What else was he hiding from me? This boy had pictures with himself and my husband at various ages. He says he was raised in a boarding school and my husband visited him occasionally. Though I very much want to, I have no reason to doubt his story. The boy asked to come to the funeral. I want to say no, but feel like I have no right. My kids see me talking to the stranger and poke their heads in to ask what's going on. Before I can stop him, the boy introduces himself to them as their half-brother. Now, not only do I have to figure out how to cope with all this information myself, but I also have to find some way to explain it to my children. My 8-year-old doesn't fully grasp the consequences of her dad keeping this kind of secret from us, but my 12-year-old is clearly distressed, although she won't discuss it with me. At the funeral, the boy kind of hung out in the corner. However, when lunch was served afterward, he approached both my daughters and started playing games like tag with my 8-year-old and some of her friends who joined in. I didn't consider this appropriate, and when I told him so, he apologized and said he did it to cheer her up, explaining that people did the same for him when his mother passed away. Something about his response irritated me, and I got the feeling he was trying to manipulate my emotions and using my kids to do so. My mom and my sister came over to support me after I received the news about my husband. Naturally, I talked to them about what was happening and they were stunned. My mom suggested that the boy might be after money. All of our significant assets were in both our names, and I am the sole beneficiary of his life insurance policy. However, I was unsure what might occur if he tried to sue. I asked the boy directly if he was after money, and he replied no. I couldn't take any of your money. You have kids to care for. The way he said that annoyed me, as though I was offering money and he was trying to appear noble by declining it. It felt as if he anticipated that I would give it to him anyway. I questioned the boy about what he wanted, and he said he wanted to get to know my children because they're his sisters. In my view, they might be his sisters, but he is a stranger to them despite the biological connection. Apparently, at the funeral, he told my 8-year-old he was going to ask me if he could take my daughters to the aquarium, raising her hopes. Before I could even decide, I agreed only if my mom or sister went along because I wasn't about to let my daughters go with a strange man, regardless of the circumstances. Over the following week, he additionally took my daughters to the playground, ice cream shop, and the beach with my sister accompanying them each time. I consented to this, and it was beneficial because it allowed me to have a moment alone to cry to my mother without my daughters being present. When he departed and my 8-year-old hugged him and told him not to leave, he said, "I promise I'll come visit again." I intervened and said no. I think it would be best if you didn't come back here. He appeared hurt, and my 8-year-old cried, but I was tired of him making promises without my consent. My sister later asked me why I told him not to return, and I explained that I find the whole situation odd. I don't know this boy or his genuine intentions. He might be some kind of stranger trying to get my daughters alone. My sister claims I judged him without even getting to know him, asserting he seems like a very kind young man who grew up mostly without a family and could have been envious of my daughters who received all their father's attention, but instead, he wanted to bond with them. In my opinion, even if those are his intentions and he is innocent, I still don't want him near my home or my daughters. To me, he is merely evidence that my husband deceived me for years, and it makes me sick to see him. My daughters don't need this drama either, and even my 8-year-old will be traumatized once she grows old enough to understand how much her father was hiding. Neither my daughters nor I owe him anything. My sister argues that while I don't have to want him in my life, I don't have the right to deny the girls their brother. She pointed out that social workers do everything possible to avoid separating siblings due to the trauma it causes. I responded that it's not the same thing because my daughters have only known this brother for a week. My sister said it's equally important because my girl's brother is now the sole person they know of their culture. My husband was about 1/8 Hawaiian, the rest Caucasian and Asian, and so the girls and their brother are approximately 1/6. The boy appears to be white, while my daughters and I are black. But this boy was raised in the UK and doesn't engage in Hawaiian culture. Honestly, I think culture is something natural and shouldn't be forced because of your genetics. My girls don't live in Hawaii, they live in Oregon. So that is their culture, not black culture or Hawaiian culture. I don't force myself or my girls to engage in African culture due to our genetics. I thought my 8-year-old would move on from her brother and she went several weeks without mentioning him, but yesterday she asked about him again. I feel regretful about ever allowing them to spend time together and bond. I wish I had handled the entire situation differently, and now I am unsure how to explain it to my kids. My 12-year-old hasn't inquired about her brother, but she has been extremely withdrawn since her father's death, and I don't know if the situation is complicating her feelings. I just need external opinions on how to handle this. Subscribe.